Welcome back. This is Matt Grohl from Vista Homes. We're excited to have you join us today. Last week we talked about the permitting process, and it is painful for sure, but it's definitely something we have to do. But once we get that permit in hand, it's time to dig a hole and start building your home. So let's talk about excavation today. Excavation is the process of removing the material or dirt in that area so that we can get our concrete foundation set inside that hole for your house to be built on. So we need to consider how deep do you have a basement or is it slab on grade? That will dictate how deep we're going to dig that hole. Do you have a walkout basement? That will tell us, what kind of daylight exposure we'll have on the back side of the home. So these are the questions we ask ourselves before we start digging a hole. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a surveyor come in and mark the corners of the home, and this is really important. More so now than ever, in the sense that nowadays these lots that we're building on are pretty small, quarter to a third of an acre. But the houses have actually grown in size. They're bigger than they used to be. So very often we have a house that's literally corner to corner as big as it possibly can for that lot. So we have to be perfect in how home is placed, because if it's not exactly where it's supposed to be, we can get in a lot of trouble. So it's worth every penny to have a surveyor come in. So before we even start excavating, he'll drop the corners of every corner of that house, so the excavator comes in, he knows where to dig. Once he digs that hole, and before we start footings, the surveyor will come back again and mark those corners again. So the footing guys knows exactly where those footings should be. So this process ensures that the house is going to be exactly where it's supposed to be. Even when you're down into a deep hole, we know exactly where that wall is supposed to come up, so that the house is right where it's supposed to be on the setback. So that's a pretty important process to do. And so that's just built into your budget. And then when he excavates that hole, he's going to dig probably 3 to 4 feet outside of the perimeter of the home, mainly to allow the foundation people to have room to walk around the house on the outside of the wall to put the forms on and off. That allows them space to work. If it's too tight, they have a hard time doing that. And so once that wall is set, we'll have to backfill those cavities. Really important that when they do excavate the hole, that we know exactly the grade that we need to go to. And so that's all determined based on where you want your driveway to be, if you want a steepness of driveway, etc., depending on the grade and so forth. Typically, a flat lot, we will have top of foundation be 18 inches above the curb. So that's kind of a basic rule of thumb. If you have all things being equal, that's kind of what we shoot for, but that can change based on the grade of the lot, the grade of the road, a lot of different variables. If it's steeper here, steeper, we have to kind of take those things into consideration. You can pay an engineer to come in and do a site plan elevation study to tell us exactly where to set that to minimize costs of material, haul off, etc. Typically we just shoot from the hip if it's a simple lot, 18 inches above the gutter for the top of foundation. So we don't want to over excavate, because if we dig too deep, then we have to backfill and compact and engineer. It's a mess. So they will actually use lasers to make sure when they excavate, they don't pull off any more than they have to. As well, we need to make sure that the bottom of this house is as flat as possibly can be, because if it's not flat, the footings have to be flat and the foundation has to be flat. So if it's really thick on one side and really thin on the other, then we're wasting a lot of concrete we shouldn't waste. So that's something we want to try to make sure excavators make it nice and flat. And nowadays they have lasers to do all this to make sure that it's as flat as can be, so it makes it a lot more efficient than it used to be in the old days. So as we dig all that material out, we're going to put all those spoils, excess fill, dirt, off to the side, because we're going to need to bring that in later. We also know exactly where the wall is going to be. So if it's a steep lot, we know we have to step down the foundation. If it's a walkout basement, we know we have to dig deeper on the back side of the home. So rule of thumb is, engineering code for this area is 30 inches above ground, above a grade is where the bottom of the fitting needs to be. That way, as we see temperature fluctuations, we don't get any heaving of the ground, which can push the footings. Any heaving of the ground would be above the footings, so it would not push the house or move the house. So that's just the engineering standard we follow in this area, in this climate that we have here. So once the foundation's in, we wait a period of time of 7 days. Then we come back in with the backfill, and we backfill all the way around the house and in the garage and any areas that we outside the basement. We'll make sure that we compact really well the areas where we're going to have concrete. Now this doesn't require engineering per se, but we will compact in lifts and with big compacting machines to make sure that when we set your front porch steps and your sidewalk and your driveway and your garage floor, that we see minimal settling. So Settling does happen, and we try to minimize that as best we can by following current engineering standards. It's kind of a tricky thing to know how much fill we'll need, so we rarely ship any dirt off until we've done all of our backfill, because dirt is so difficult to guesstimate as far as how much you have or how much you'll need. So we wait until we backfill everything, and then if we need more material, we'll get it arranged, or if we have excess, then we can ship it off at whatever later date we need to. Typically, we'll set it off to the side, and it's surprising with so much construction going on, there'll be somebody around close that will need dirt, and they sometimes will help pay to remove that dirt for you, saving you money in the building process. So again, we compacted below all these different concrete areas to allow those concrete pads to be as stable as possible. And we also will make sure we grade away from the house, you know, because if you think about it, we're doing this finished grade now, and we won't do the final finished grade until 3, 4, 5 months later. And during that period of time, I'm sure we'll have a big rainstorm, and we're gonna have water flowing around the house. So we want that water to be shedded away from the home, away from the basement. We've seen some unfortunate situations where rain will come into the home and into the basement, causing flooding and ruining materials. So we definitely wanna make sure that grade is just right. So that wraps up our conversation on excavation. Thanks for joining us today. Again, click on the subscribe and like us and follow us and share us and do all that good stuff. Next week, we're going to talk about footings and foundation and share some more videos of the house we're working on here in Utah. Thanks for joining us. Bye.